These red oak boards have been sitting in my garage for a while, and I decided to make an end table with them. I'm starting with the tabletop, milling everything down first, but you don't have to do this if you buy your wood surface for sides. It should be good enough to go right away. I'm cutting all the boards for the tabletop at 17 inches, which will later be trimmed down to 16 by 16. I just like to give myself a little bit of extra working space. Also, here's a tip. If you don't have a joiner and the pieces are small enough, you can actually just shave really small amounts off on the table saw, and typically that'll give you a nice clean edge. This is just a panel glue up, so it really doesn't require anything special. You don't have to add biscuits or anything. If the boards are longer, biscuits do help for keeping things aligned, but the glue is plenty strong. Also, it's hard to see here, but the edges are perfect from just using the table saw. So I didn't need a lot of pressure to get everything aligned, which is what you want. After the glue up, I squared up the tabletop and trimmed it down to its final size of 16 by 16 inches. After squaring up, I got the tabletop sanded down. The more sanding you can do early on in the project, the better. I also used a simple round over bit just to soften all the edges. I'm making all of the legs 20 inches long, so once again giving myself an inch of extra space. It's really good practice to do this because it's easier to square things up in the end when you have extra board to cut off. I have 12 pieces total, and I'm gluing up sets of 3 because the legs are going to be 2 inches by 2 inches. I thought about milling up the legs using my table saw, but since I have a planer, I used that just to clean up all the edges and get the right thickness I wanted. I'm using my modular sled to set up a tapering jig, just adding a couple stop blocks and then adding a clamp, and I'm using this to taper all 4 legs only on one side. It looks pretty good if you taper 2 sides that are on the inside because it kind of gives an illusion that the leg is skinnier. But for mine, I only wanted on one because I thought that would be a neat look. To finish off the table base, we need to make some leg braces. This way we can connect all 4 legs together in one solid unit. To assemble, we're simply using pocket screws. Now if it's a larger piece of furniture or chair, you wouldn't want to use pocket screws, you would want to use more traditional joinery. But for a small end table, this is going to be plenty strong. I'm also attaching the tabletop using pocket screws. I'm only adding a couple pocket screws right in the center of 2 boards across from each other, because we have to allow room for expansion of the tabletop. After assembling the base, the last thing I had to do is finish both the base and the top with 3 coats of water-based polyurethane.